let's go back to where we started about what the incumbents can learn from this, and perhaps the easiest way to do that is to see it through your lens.
Mm.
If you were, which I very much doubt you will, to go back into a senior CEO role in a incumbent bank in South Africa or elsewhere, having now had this journey for the last 2 or 3 years, what do you think you'd do differently to perhaps what you were attempting to do, 5 or 6 years ago when you were in the senior hot speeds?
So, Colin, maybe just to answer that question, about why the big banks aren't able to do the stuff that we do and the neobanks are doing, it's largely cultural. If I look at sort of the banks that I work for, unlimited budgets, incredibly talented people, amazing sort of infrastructure, and you had lots of authority to do lots of stuff. And yet somehow you were never able to deliver quite what you wanted to deliver in time, on budget. And a lot of these projects, just never materialized, just because of very strong cultural issues. And what are they? First of all, silos. There are lots of silos. So, your IT, your ops, your products, your business are often in very different silos. So even though they all sit on committees together, their priorities are very different. So that I find super frustrating. There's also a sort of a real anti-risk layer in organizations, and it's quite subliminal. But, why take this risk? We're doing pretty well. We've got millions of customers. We're very profitable. Geez, why go and spend, 10, 20 million building something which is risky? And so, I was quite intrigued to see, despite hiring the very best talent in the world, we brought amazing people in from around the world who, by the way, having left those organizations, have gone back overseas and built amazing businesses. We were just never able to culturally get it right because there were just too many blockers. At the worst case, you had the passage terrorists who just, we're going to push back on any kind of innovation that was disrupting the current model. And on the best case, you would have got well-intended people who didn't quite believe in this world of digital. My sense is, COVID has changed all of that. I think, the world has become instantly digital over the last 18 months. And so I think, stepping into one of those organizations to ask your question, I would be a lot braver. I would drive this stuff a lot harder, and probably, need to move a lot more people out of the organization. Those blockers that sit in organization just below the radar and don't want this stuff to happen are the people that I think, transformational organizations will have to oust. Because there are a lot of them, and there are a million motivations. Some of them are well-intended, some of them are, just unfounded. But I think the reality is, with the best intent in the world, unless you've got a CEO of a big organization who's personally driving this stuff, it's very, very difficult in these legacy organizations to actually, do what the neobanks are able to do so quickly.
Yeah, but I'm gonna hold this up. I don't know if this is going to work, but I'll hold it up. This is my exponential curve.
Yep.
And that's, to me, that's enviable.
Yep.
Because you start small.
Yep.
And you experiment and you iterate and you go and put out the requests to the public, and you've got 200 first early adopters, 200. Yep. And then you go and iterate some more, and you go and use Discord or other social media chat channels to go and get information back.
Yep.
And it's the same every time we talk to fintechs or any startup really that's, that knows their stuff. You always see this incremental but continual innovation on a daily basis, building and building. And so you go and set that point where you start to actually go and see that exponential growth, and you hit the knee of the curve, and you look back and everyone says, yeah, overnight success, but it was 8 years of work.
Yep.
My sense in the big banks is that they don't apply that approach. They sit there with a scoping document that says, let's solve the world, and spend 3 hours as building it, and then spend lots of money, and it's 3 or 4 years, and then you try to release it, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? Totally different models. Is that your sense as well, now that you've seen both sides?
Totally. So, I think that the big banks, because they've got big budgets and these millions of customers, are always trying to build the Rolls Royce. The startup is trying to incrementally improve the customer experience, and they're fundamentally different. So the fact that we've done, as of today, 19 new releases into the App Store since January, can you imagine that in a big bank, that they're doing these sort of, literally bi-weekly changes to their app, adding new features, changing user experience, and it's all driven by customers. So, we've got a super user group, including one of Google's very, very senior designers, who basically are saying to us, for example, our first version had lots of emojis in it, was a lot of fun. And, he came back to us and said, this is very cool for an 18-year-old. But, I don't like all these emojis. It just makes me feel like you're not serious. You're not looking after my money. And so guess what? We went out to our 1,000 super users and said, how do you feel about the emojis? And, 90% said, no, too many emojis. Take the emojis out. We don't need emojis. We like the app, So, guess what? You sort of re-engineer the whole front end. There's a little bit of back end development because we built some stuff in there. And, we followed what they want. In a big bank, that would never, ever surface, I don't think, because that level of day-to-day feedback just isn't happening. It's going through big marketing research companies. It's in deep reports, which are probably emailed out to a big audience, never really read properly, never executed. In the world we live in, if we screw up and we don't meet these needs, the numbers just drop off, and you'll suddenly go from very low levels of attrition. You'll suddenly find you've got 10, 15, 20% of attrition because people are just fed up. They've got so much choice in this new world that if you don't get it right and you don't listen to them, you get ousted. And it's one of the reasons I think, in America, the big banks are losing tens of millions of customers to challenger banks like ourselves. Now, we're a baby. We've only been around in the market for 4 months, actually. But, you look at the Chimes and you look at many of the successful neobanks in America, they are stealing tens of millions of clients from the big banks. And, simply because the experience is better and they feel that someone's listening to them and answering, their needs.